Testing, testing. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Costa the Garden Gnome, and I am super excited to be here with you to celebrate the Explore Your Backyard online festival. A very big welcome to you all. I would like to start by saying that I am broadcasting to you from Gadigal and Biddigal land of the Eora here in Sydney, and I acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. As you know, our wonderful landscapes from wherever you are joining us from all operate off water, and water is such an integral part of our everyday lives, and that's really what this wonderful celebration as part of National Water Week is all about. For those of you that don't know, National Water Week runs from the 18th to the 24th of October. And look, it's all about building awareness around the value of water. So before I go any further, can you jump on and tell us where you are joining us from? As I said, I'm up here in Sydney. I'm about to introduce you to Damien, who I believe is coming from Ballarat. If that's incorrect, he will correct me. So if you can let us know not only where you're from, which town, but if you know the country that you're on as well. So thank you, Emily Byrne, joining from Bendigo, Judgewarong country. Fantastic to have you join us, Emily. And Nicolette Robson, good afternoon to you, and big welcome to this wonderful Water Week event. And what a celebration it is. Hi everyone, this is Deanne and I'm joining you from sunny Inglewood in regional Victoria. Hello Auntie D, good on you, and thanks for coming along. Jill, good afternoon from Judgewarong. It's lovely to have you here, Jill. And Natalie, Gippsland, Gurunai Kunai country. It's wonderful to hear these languages being spoken, and for us to hear the original, the names of the different country that you're all on. Now, access to clean water is a critical part of our everyday lives. And really, it's up to all of us to protect our water, which is our environment. Water is our environment. No water, no environment. And it's these resources that we use every day that we're capable of using them a little more wisely. But ultimately, how we use them comes down to how we understand them. And that capacity, our ability to be conscious of our use of water is a big thing. It's a really big thing. But a small change in our thinking can really result in a big change in our day-to-day action. So Victoria this year is celebrating National Water Week with the Explore Your Backyard online festival, with everything that's gone on, as you're all aware, with lockdowns. It's been very difficult to organise any events, and a big congratulations to everyone involved in the project for pushing on and celebrating water. Even if it is online, we can still share our knowledge, our experience, and most of all, our tips. Hello, Costa, Ben, Nina. Hello from Bairnsdale. Oh, I was out in Bairnsdale, well, not last year, the year before. Bendigo, again, Kerry, welcome from Bendigo. So the event, in terms of the organisers that I was mentioning, it's been organised by Victorian Water Corporations and Catchment Management Authorities with support from DELP. I love it when I'm doing DELP events, because I love DELWP, Department of Environment, Land and Water. Now, to get us underway, I'd like to introduce you all to Damien Wells. He is currently the Managing Director at Coliban Water. And Coliban Water, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, Damien, you can correct me for being a dodgy outsider from north of the border. So Damien is based in Bendigo, but he's worked in catchment management, rural water, and in regulation at Victoria's EPA. And today, Damien has the pleasure of representing all of the different organisations involved in the National Water Week event. So this is a big thing, but it's a really exciting thing, because the more organisations we have, the greater the reach. The greater the reach, the more we can share information, ideas, and, as you're going to see across this broadcast, lots of events over the week. So, Damien, big welcome to you, and how exciting is it to be kicking off the Explore Your Backyard Week?
Yeah, g'day Costa. Thanks for jumping in and getting involved. And look, it is really exciting to kick off National Water Week. And as you said, that theme of caring for water and country. I'm coming to you from Jajawarung country in central Victoria, and it's definitely Bendigo where I'm from. You may be aware there's a bit of a rivalry between Bendigo and Ballarat.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I'm here today, as you said, on behalf of all the water corporations and catchment management authorities. And we're just really pleased to get involved in National Water Week to try to raise the profile of water, the role water corporations, catchment management authorities, everyone involved in water, and how it underpins everything that we do on this planet. So, yeah, we're really excited about it.
Now, tell me a little bit about the Explore Your Backyard project. What's the theme? What's underpinning it all, and how can people attach and connect to the project at their place?
Yeah, look, the theme came about, Costa, as you know, and I think there's someone who looks a lot like you on Gardening Australia, who did a video about your own backyard in lockdown. And certainly when thinking about National Water Week this year, there was a great opportunity. We know that so many people have got way more intimate with their own backyard and their local spaces, because certainly in Victoria, as in many parts around Australia and indeed the world, there's been extended periods of lockdown. And when those lockdowns have happened, people have been restricted to their local area, and people have done a heap of work in their backyards. And so we thought this is a great opportunity for people to learn more about what else they can do in their backyard to be water smart, and to think through how you can have a great garden, how you can think about all the things that you promote around composting and sustainability, how you can navigate all the different seasonal conditions that we will get, because as we know in Southeast Australia, in Australia more broadly, we will run into further droughts. We know that climate change is impacting significantly already on water availability, and those challenges will continue. So there's things that we can all do at home to be more sustainable and more efficient with our water use.
I like that question there. Why is water efficiency an issue in Victoria? And to everyone with us today, again, and anyone who's just joined, welcome to this wonderful conversation and opportunity to launch Water Week. Why? And I ask you, pop up your thoughts about why you think water efficiency is an issue in Victoria, and throw me a couple of reasons from your extensive perspective on it all, Damien, about why water efficiency for everyone is a big issue.
Yeah, no worries, Costa. Look, there's a pretty simple equation, which is more people, less water. So we are obviously going to continue to have population growth in Australia and around the world. There's going to be less water. A specific example, just to give people a sense of the scale of the impact of climate change, for example, in our region in central Victoria, we've had water yield. So if you think about what happens when it rains, obviously you've got to have that water needs to obviously saturate soil and then ultimately run off, go into our local creeks and rivers, and then into storages to be available for people to use. And it obviously does great things for our beautiful environment that sustains us along the way. In central Victoria, the parts of our catchment, water yield has reduced by up to 50% over the past 25 to 30 years. So climate change isn't something that's way off down the track. something that's impacting us already in our lives. And obviously, it's not just less water, but it's obviously hotter, drier. It's thinking about those climate extremes and how we need to navigate those extremes through time, because the only thing that's certain is that those extreme periods will turn up. And so this gives us a chance to think about what that might mean for our garden. But obviously, it's going to be something for all of us to consider in society, things like heat health risk. How do we actually navigate those periods for, the impact it can have on well-being?
And it's interesting, isn't it, Damien? Because we talk about the garden, but the garden is connected to the house. The house is connected to the garden. And what we do in the house can really impact what happens out in the garden as well, because water savings in the house, or water that's would otherwise go to stormwater or to the drain, can actually be captured and used on the garden. And in doing that, you then contribute to less need for electricity, which requires a lot of water. And anything that requires transport requires water. So small actions at home actually help deal with the big picture issue. And whether you want to call it climate change, whether you want to call it water efficiency, whether you want to call it drought proofing, all of these things, they're in our hands as individuals, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, Costa. And look, thinking about what things that you can do, if you think about potable water, so the water that comes into your house in the form of drinking water that we enjoy through our taps and showers and so forth, about 25 to up to 50% of water used in households is actually used on gardens. So there's things we can do to think about how we, obviously the planning of our garden, a good water, drought tolerant plantings in our garden and so forth. But there's also opportunities to think about reusing grey water, so the water from our bathrooms and from our washing machines and so forth that could be used on the garden. And as you say, obviously, the good old fashioned rainwater tank, and also just thinking about how water moves around your garden and your property so that you can retain that on site. And one of your massive big themes that you are always emphasising is, what are you doing with your soil? What are you doing with your soil in your garden to ensure it can hold water? And I'm the son of a farmer, and I know my dad always had a huge focus on organic matter in the soil and soil moisture retention. So big themes for us to think about. And have you got some tips for us on that, Costa? What should people be thinking about with their soil?
Well, anything you do to increase the organic content in your soil basically means that you're creating a sponge. And if you create a sponge to hold that water, to prevent the soil from becoming hard and shedding water when it rains, then that sponge not only feeds plants and feeds trees, the trees then create shade, which keeps the ground cool. If it keeps the ground cool, then there's less evaporation. So you can see how these simple action, that action of actually taking your food scraps from the bench top to create compost through worm farming and having a compost bin, is actually saving water, because it's holding the water that we get. And if we look at our houses differently, if we look, where is the stormwater pipe? How can I divert that into a tank? How can I create a rain garden to allow that water to infiltrate into the ground and hydrate the landscape? These little things actually mean that if you are a raindrop, the greatest thing we can do as individuals is to imagine ourselves as a raindrop and think, how can I slow that raindrop's travel from the sky back to the creeks, rivers, and then ocean? And if we can slow it down, which is what nature's design is, through catching it on leaves and then slowly down the trunk and then into the soil, and it gets picked up in the soil and held there, then it gets picked up by the tree again and might go straight back out and evaporate through the tree back into a cloud. And then if we form clouds, that rains again and brings the rain. So all of these actions in cooling our landscapes, slowing water down, think about what we do. We accelerate it. We have roofs, pipes, pavements, roads, gutters, and we take the water from where it lands and send it back to the ocean very quickly. So little things that we can do to slow it down is a real treat. Now, I believe I'm always a fan of acronyms, Damien. Now, what are the PWSR? To explain that to everyone.
Yeah, they're the permanent water saving rules. And that's something in Victoria since 2011. After, obviously, we had the Millennium Drought impact Southeast Australia. There were some really, really challenging times. And I know here in Bendigo, there was no outside watering at that time. And a lot of gardens took a big hit. Now, there's been huge investments in water infrastructure to support all of our communities. There has actually been a new desalination plant built. There's been a lot of water security projects implemented right across Victoria. But the permanent water saving rules are really about trying to make sure that we're water smart all the time, not just in drought, but all the time. And they're really simple, very common sense things. So trigger nozzles at all times out in the garden, that's the number one. As you move through, there's a whole bunch of different things about, if you do have a water feature, it's got to be recirculating the water. If you've got automatic watering systems, that's between 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. they can be operated. And if you do need to, if you have a hazard on hard surfaces, you can actually wash that with a high pressure nozzle, but that's just if there's a hazard. So we don't want to be using water to wash down driveways and that for dust and all that kind of stuff. But if there's a hazard, you can do that. Now, if there's less water available, then water corporations, and people can learn more about this on their local water corporation website. If restrictions need to get implemented, what those are. And as you go through stage 1, stage 2, 3, and 4, those restrictions increase in their severity, if you like. So it's worth, as you're designing a garden, it's worth having a look at those water restrictions. What are the possible scenarios that can play out over, say, a 10 or 15-year period that my garden will have to survive? And so some of that includes not being able to water lawn under extreme circumstances, and also odds and evens watering on gardens and so forth. So it's worth understanding that going in, and also might drive the way you think about grey water and systems and investing in those in your house, and rainwater collection, etc.
Now, I think it's time, as a garden gnome, I'm always up for material videos. I love videos, and I think it's time for us to go to a video. So for everyone watching, here's a little bit of a video just to take you into this conversation a little further.
I think the video's gone kaput there, Costa.
Looks like we might have had a little bit of a challenge with the video. I'll just see whether we want to go. Shall we try the video again? I'm just calling on my gods of the video to see.
Otherwise, some
didn't quite. Now, Damien, as far as other future-proofing ideas go, what are some more basic things that you can recommend to people in terms of those day-to-day actions, alongside, as you mentioned, you can plan certain things, of course, around the types of plants you choose, the whether you have an irrigation system in some areas, composting we've mentioned to build soil fertility. Of course, there's mulching is another big and important part of helping to build that organic layer.
Yeah, absolutely, Costa. Well, sorry, I'm just getting a bit of delay there. Look, I think you've nailed a lot of them. Obviously, there's things you can do in your house as well around water efficient appliances, and they play a very big role in saving water. But I think you've pretty much nailed it. Something we didn't mention around grey water, however, is there's a lot of resources online around how to actually capture and use grey water at your place. And also, right, you got to think about going upstream in how that water comes about, and thinking about low salt content detergents, and and how you filter that water. There's a lot of great resources online, and obviously thinking through, you don't want to block dripper systems and so forth that you install. So if you go to your local water corporation website, you can often follow links. I know there's some great information around grey water reuse on the Environment Protection Authority Victoria website as well. But they're mostly, I think, the themes we've covered off, Costa.
Yeah, I think the other thing people can consider is, of course, in the kitchen, we use more than 10% of our water in the kitchen, and a lot of actions are around washing. They're around washing vegetables before we eat them. They're around rinsing, and some of that rinsing really comes away with very little comes off that rinsing, and that water is still valuable. So something as simple as having a plastic container with water in it that you rinse the vegetables in, and then have a bucket with a nice handle. Because I think the other thing, if you're going to change behavior, make sure that the behavior change is safe. You're not carrying it in bowls and fumbling and stumbling and dripping and spilling water. Start to think about the regular places where you could save water, and the kitchen sink is one of them, and have a little bucket there which can sit in a cupboard or sit in a space that it's not a problem. And then you can pour that water into that bucket, cart it out to the garden and pour it in the garden, put it in a watering can and use it. I mean, when you rinse vegetables, there might be a bit of soil on that. That can go back into the garden. So something as simple as that, even having a container in the shower, so that when you turn the water on and you're waiting for the hot water to come on, you capture all that cold water that would otherwise go. And you could do that by having your water bottle near the tap as well when you turn the tap on and you want to save that water. Really simple little ways to think, how can I place a container in places to capture this water?
Yeah, absolutely, Costa. All of the above, and certainly, I mean, something else that is happening right across Victoria, just changing gears a little bit, is digital water metering as well, or they're digital loggers on water meters, and that can help us understand water usage at our place. And there's actually a specific program that's being rolled out across Victorian schools, and since they've been running that since 2012. And that's the school's water efficiency program. And they've got digital loggers on the water meter at schools, and they've got a great little user interface where students can see water use, and also people that manage the grounds, etc., at the school, and they can pick up leaks that are happening on the school side of the meter, and they can also track water use through time, and they've been using it for maths and all kinds of cool things in school to help build kids' understanding about water and how it's used and how significant water can actually be saved. So if you're involved in schools out there, you can jump on and check out the school's water efficiency program, and you can actually get involved directly in that as well. And I know some schools have saved heaps of water and actually saved heaps of money as well on the water bill for the school.
Yes, indeed. One school I was working with that was involved with this program, they actually found that there was a leak that they didn't even realize they had, and they had just adapted to be spending $2,000. And because principles change, people see that that's the amount on the bill. No one had ever questioned it, and they questioned it, and they saved $2,000, $2,000 a quarter, because they dropped the bill from $2,000 to $200 because of that program. So it's really positive. Now I believe we've got a video to talk about this.
Great.
Natalie will get to that question for you. Yep, seems like. So you can find out more at Explore Your Backyard 2021 on Facebook. And if you actually keep in touch on a page like that, you'll see lots of great stories, lots of great examples that will be put up there, and have all the links to the different programs. And are there any other sites that you want to mention, Damien, so that people can sort of log these down and keep in touch? Because this isn't just about Water Week. This is about water all throughout the year, and it's about our habits and changing our behaviours.
Yeah, that's right, Costa. And one of the things that I would also put a shout out to is back to the theme, which is caring for water and country. So it's a really specific mention of traditional owners. And we know that traditional owners obviously were custodians and continue to be amazing custodians of our natural environment. And when you think about the cultural values of water, it's fantastic. I know there's some links to some material where there's, I know the CEO of the Dja Dja Wurrung Aboriginal Clans Corporation, Rodney Carter, he gives a talk to help us better understand the cultural values, Aboriginal cultural values associated with water. And there's a great opportunity for us to do some listening so we can learn more. And there's some things happening in Victoria where Victoria is working towards a treaty with Aboriginal people. There's an opportunity for us to understand how there's a lot of institutional inertia, and there's a lot of embedded things in institutions which actually have continued to cause dislocation and disconnection from culture for Aboriginal people. And water is just such a fundamental thing that binds us all and has been so important since the dawn of time. So I'd encourage people to think about how you can learn a little bit more about Aboriginal people, Aboriginal history in your particular patch. And as you said at the outset, it's great to hear people calling out and understanding the traditional owner names of the country where they reside, which is great.
Yeah, these links that you're talking about, that Damien's talking about, everyone, they're popping up on the page at the moment, so you can get them there. They'll also be in the feed, so you can go back to this link that you've joined on, and there's YouTube videos, there's Facebook links, and you can get this this experience. You can get these ideas. You can start to think about water, not just in terms of how we use it, but how it connects to the very core and fabric of the country that we live on. And it's very exciting to have this layer of First Nations knowledge coming in to what has been, you know, in effect, an authority saying, well, this is how things are. And to have this new layer of information come in, it's lovely to see, isn't it, Damien?
Look, it's fantastic, and there's so much to learn and so much to understand. And certainly, I know catchment management authorities who are also supporting this program. They have done so much work, particularly in environmental flows and thinking about what the river needs, but really thinking through traditional owner values around water and cultural values. I've come to understand more recently that there's a lot of it, can I say, you know, white fella concepts applied that people have often thought that, oh, well, that's what Aboriginal people would want to see for the river as well. But it's really, what I've learned is it is just not that simple, and that there's so much to learn about the cultural values that Aboriginal people hold for local waterways and landscape. And so being true to the idea of Aboriginal self-determination, it's about supporting Aboriginal people to, you know, to realise their aspirations for place. And so it's not about, you know, institutions saying how it's going to be. And there's a lot of, you know, moments where we all realise, oh, jeepers, you know, there's a lot of things that I held in my head which are really not quite right, and things that I thought I was in the right place around this particular issue, but actually we have to do more listening.
Yeah, that's so true, Damien, and it's wonderful that it's making its way in, and we can all shift our perspective just a little to allow some of this in, and become connected with what those ideas, what that historical knowledge can bring to a discussion around water, which is the lifeblood of the landscape, which is the country where we live and what it needs. Now, I had a question here that Newstead Community Garden are seeking a drought-tolerant ground cover plant that will not only be taken, will not be taken over by couch grass. Well, Newstead, I think, particularly in a dry landscape, I don't think you can go past something like saltbush. There's quite a few different varieties of saltbush, from lower ground cover growing varieties to smallish bush versions of saltbush. And if you, whether you speak to your community nursery, your local land care group, to see whether they're growing them and propagating them, or go to your local nursery itself and start to experiment with some saltbush, because once saltbush establishes, nothing else will grow underneath it, because it's so dense. I've put some out on my west facing nature strip, and it has just taken to the heat. There's a reflecting wall which gets the sun all afternoon, and the saltbush is just basking in it. It's just saying, oh yes, I'd love a little bit more heat, and yeah, evaporate a bit more, because I don't need that much water. But then it cools the ground, and because it cools the ground, the other plants in and around it are getting a chance to grow well as well. Now, the second question we had there was about a bird bath. That the bird bath wasn't being so successful and popular to the birds that it was trying to attract. It's important to think a little carefully about the location. That's one of the most important things. It's best under the cover of a tree, or in and around some shrubs and some plants, because small birds in particular will not allow themselves to be exposed in a big open location. They need cover. They need protection. And this is where you can plant lots of low to medium-sized native plants, some of them the spiky hakeas, particularly, because that is their safe place. So they can get in there, they feel safe, and then they can drop their guard for a minute and have a drink. Because the moment they drop their guard, they're vulnerable and they're susceptible. Ideally, you want to have it about 1 meter off the ground, because that way, again, they have a slight safety advantage and they feel like they're still in a position to observe what's going on. So dappled shade, out of the midday sun, and by doing that, you'll reduce the amount of evaporation, and not only that, it won't heat up as much, because if the water heats up, there's then that potential for there to be algae. So think about it. What Damien and I were talking about earlier, the water in the kitchen, we could capture that and keep replenishing our bird bath. And if we all put bird baths out, imagine what that's going to mean for birds, particularly as we head into this week, which is also the week of the Aussie backyard bird count. So whether you're talking about water week, whether you're talking about bird week and pollinator week, they're all related, because we need little bird baths and baths for our pollinators as well. And it's important to have some rocks or a branch in there so that bees and native wasps and other pollinators, butterflies and things can land and walk down to the water's edge, get some water and come out safely. So there are a few little tips to consider. We're looking at planting our garden. How does self-watering garden beds work? Okay, self-watering garden beds are like an old style candle, or oil candle that had a wick. The fabric wick draws the oil up to keep the flame going. The same is with self-watering garden beds. There's a water well underneath. There's a fabric that keeps the soil out of the water well, but it allows the water to touch the soil, and then that water wicks its way up. And what you then have is the plant's roots going down and the water coming up, and they meet. But the key thing is they meet well away from the surface. So what that actually does is encourage the plant to send its roots deeper. And then it's not at the whim and at the discretion of the heat of the day. When plants' roots are all at the top of the soil, because you give them just a little happy clappy water once a day, then there's no resilience. So something like water wells like that really build a plant's resilience, because it gets its roots down deep and you don't need to water them as often. Well, how do I find out how to build a swale for my school? Yes, well, swales again are really wonderful elements. So for those of you that don't know, a swale is like a mound, and it catches water that may be heading down a slope. And instead of it being shed and lost, the swale catches the water and allows the water to infiltrate. And the higher up the landscape it infiltrates, then it makes its way down and hydrates the rest of that landscape all the way down the hill, to the point that you then get natural springs. That's what natural springs are. That's when the landscape is so hydrated that the water starts to bubble out of the ground. But when we rush the water away or put it into gullies, which then get eroded, that lowers the water table, which drains the water out further up the valley. So what we want to do is slow water down. And the more we slow water down, the more we give it a chance to hydrate the landscape. And then trees and plants and gardens, be they vegetable or therapeutic or for pollinators, and either way, a swale is a wonderful mechanism to slow water and make it available for plants. Oh, Melbourne Water website. Thank you, June. There you go, everyone. The Melbourne Water website. Check that out for a wonderful link. There's actually, as part of Water Week, it's you'll be able to see this when you look up the program. But there's a bee and butterfly encounter. I like that. It's a bee and butterfly encounter. It's part of Lab Coat Learning, and it's on Wednesday the 20th at 12:30 p.m. The other thing that we want to encourage all of you listeners and viewers today is to send us a picture of how you save and use water in your garden and in your house, with the opportunity to win $100. So that closes tomorrow. So put your Thinking Gnomes hats on, send us a pic, and you'll be in the running for a wonderful $100 voucher or prize. Auntie D would like to know what type of grass is best to put down at her kindergarten where children run and that doesn't need too much water. Okay. Well, there's lots of options there. I mean, in terms of grass down there, of course, I need to know, Damien Jungatha, give me a little bit more insider knowledge about the microclimate down there. Does that get a heavy frost in the winter?
Well, look, we do get frost. Depends. I think Auntie D mentioned. I think she said Inglewood, if my memory serving me properly. So no, it's pretty. It's actually starting to move up into that semi-arid zone. So yeah, frost definitely get frosts, but not not every week. We do get many. But yeah. It'll be probably 400 mils rainfall and not too much frost, but definitely frost occasionally.
My approach to this, Auntie D, would be, instead of going for one big massive area of grass, which is going to struggle, particularly relative to what Damien was talking about in terms of future proofing, I would rather see you go for a nice blanket of grass, an area of grass that the children can play on, that they can sit on for classes, that you can really look after. You can put a good subsurface base down of free draining material. You can make sure that it's rich in the nutrients that the grass needs, and then you can maintain that one nice space rather than having wall-to-wall grass that is good in some areas and worn out in others. What you want in a kindergarten area is an area where the children can run around, because children in their thinking need circuits, because that's where they burn around and they go from A to B in loops. And if you don't have loops, then they'll wear tracks out. Whereas if you have loops that circle the grass area and go out into other areas that are mulch, planted out with even some native grasses and some other different grasses, but that's part of the garden area. And then you have your very nice lawn area that can be used for classes, can be used for sitting on, playing on, relaxing on. Then you reduce that ongoing maintenance and you celebrate the grass for an area that you use and you use well, but it's been prepared well. It can have the sort of irrigation that it needs, and you can also close it off when it needs a little bit of time out. And there's still plenty of other areas in the kindy for them to play in without it having to close off the entire play space. So that, to any other early childhood educators there, I would rather see grass of that caliber than just kilometres of grass that's of poor quality, or kilometres of synthetic grass, which gets very, very hot in the summer.
Great stuff, Costa. Yeah, so lawn doesn't have to be a dirty thing. I know we've got a little bit of lawn. We've got a little bit of lawn in our backyard that does get watered, and we've spent countless hours of joy kicking the soccer ball and the footy with the kids out the back. And but it's a contained area. We look after that bit of grass, but it's not the whole yard.
And it's in the best spot. Like, put it in the best spot for grass to grow with good sun. You get the nice morning sun to midday, and then it has some protection from the hot afternoon sun. And that way you can put up trees, you can build a design around it so that the trees you put up are on the western side, so that they're creating shade in the afternoon, which is when you want your grass to have a bit of a break. You don't want shade on the eastern side in the morning, which prevents it from getting the light that it needs during the day to grow well. So then you'll have a really good balance. And in some ways, you can dictate where the best space for that lawn, not in some ways, you can dictate where the best space is and then enhance that best space by providing the protection on that aspect that needs to be buffered against. And that will probably look after drying winds as well.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, so the other thing, Damien, that I wanted to mention, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but us garden gnomes, we get involved with lots of things, and this Thursday night, I'm sure you're aware of this, is water night, and much like Water Week, Water Night is a specific event which focuses everything Damien and I have been talking about into 12 hours. And it says, okay, from midday to midnight on Thursday, I'm going to not use my taps. And I'm going to consciously note down how many times I reach for a tap. Now, this has been going for a couple of years, and I've been an ambassador for it. And it's amazing when you suddenly think, how many times do I go on autopilot and reach for the tap? And what you need to do is prepare. You need to have some buckets. You need to fill water bottles, have water in the fridge, have water in pots for cooking, and just push yourself out of that comfort zone for a little while. You can still use the taps for all of your COVID safe washing, and you can still go to the toilet. But note how many, well, you know, if it's a twinkle, if it's only a wee, well, hold off. And if it's a number two, you can always have a bucket there and flush it down. But the thing I really wholeheartedly encourage about it is that it's not just about on water night. It's actually every day to just think, do I really need to turn the tap on? Can I do it? And just have cups near the sink, so that before you go to bed, you can brush your teeth with a cup full of water and see how you go. You will be truly amazed. And it's much like, think about it like this. Everyone became really connected with Earth Hour when we said, turn off the lights, stop leaving the lights on the whole house all night. Well, water night is young. It's a new idea. It's only been going for a couple of years. It's building momentum. And as part of Water Week, it's a wonderful project that really encapsulates everything Damien has been talking about. And it's a chance for us to take these ideas and actually put them to the test, to say, all right, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to ask myself to restrain and note down how many times did I go for the tap today in that 12 hours. And gee, you'll be surprised. I can't recommend it. I cannot recommend it enough. It's a great project. And in the midst of Water Week, it's just perfect. Have you given it a go, Damien?
I haven't, but I'm going to do it this. I'm going to do it this Thursday. And you're right; it's quite outrageous. If you've ever had a plumber come over and do some work, and they say, "Oh, I've got to turn the water off, do the plumbing," and how many times do you walk over to the tap anyway, and you just go, "Oh, hang on, my brain's not working." And so, yeah, but we do say COVID safe. We've still got to do all the hand washing, so we're okay with taps just for hand washing and COVID safe, as you said. But yeah, look, I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it really is, you know, it reminded me some years ago, we were doing some work on the house. And so the back steps had been taken off. and the builder had nailed the door closed. And I just remember walking out and just trying to open the door, and I'd clean. It was just autopilot, you know, and so much of these things that we've talked about today are adapting the thinking and then changing the household behavior, setting up family understanding and family guidelines that this is what we do as a household. This is how we do our bit. And when you start to think about it like that, little habits, little actions become habits, and then habits become culture. And you can change your family culture just by saying, okay, let's do this together. And step by step, we can see how much water we save. And by having the data, and this is what the Sustainable Schools program was all about, by looking at the data and saying, hang on, we've cut this water use by X number of thousands of litres a week. And if we all do that, like, I mean, I thought about it like this. If we don't flush the toilet at night when we have a wee, imagine across 7 nights, if we save 1 flush, but you're going to save 2 because there can be 1 in the morning as well. So 2 flushes, say, what's a half flush? 6 litres?
Probably 3 or 4, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so 4 litres, there's 8 litres. 8 litres times 7, that's 56 litres. 56 litres, if there's 4 people in the house, there's 200 litres a week. 200 litres a week, 800 litres a month. But that's 4 people. Now imagine if that's 4 million people.
Oh, look, Costa, I think, and this, you mentioned the schools program as well. You know, the old, you know, what gets measured gets managed. So yeah, I think if you actually pay attention to these things and you measure them and track them, then you actually you do start to see change. And I think the other thing just on that, and you mentioned Water Week and you mentioned Earth Hour, something obviously that's coming up is the global climate talks. And think about what we're managing in terms of the climate risk. Well, we've got to do a lot of measurement there. And I know all water corporations are heading towards a net zero position, and we're energy intensive businesses. Wastewater treatment is particularly energy intensive, and I know at Collaben Water we've started with over 30,000 tonnes of carbon emissions each year, and we've got a program to track that down to 0 net emissions by 2030, and that's pretty ambitious for an energy intensive business. So that's something that we're asking you know, everyone to pay attention to as well, because obviously if you're using less water, we're using less energy to treat water as well. So just think of it, there's so many other benefits.
Yeah, like, you know, when this is the bit that I like to remind people about as we talk about Glasgow and we talk about those seriously big issues that we need to as an international community. Ultimately, all the changes, big changes, start with small steps, and small steps start through commitment and education of the community. And as the community drives this change, then they drive the change up the chain politically. And when we demand that action because we're understanding of the consequences, but we also have skin in the game because we're right in it. We are conserving. We have investment, and it's that investment that's critical. So everything you're doing at Collaben, everything that all of the water organisations are doing to encourage people to store water, to conserve water, every bit we conserve means we don't have to try and build new reservoirs, because we use the water that we have and keep it in the natural reservoirs of the landscapes around us. And by limiting those constant places where we just mindlessly use water, mindlessly turn the tap on and rinse and rinse and rinse, walk to the fridge while we've got the tap running, turn the taps on before we get in the shower, then go and do a wee and then get in the shower. And in that time, we've lost 15 or 20 litres of water because that's just how we do it. These kind of behaviour changes, it's not that you have to go without, it's just we can go with, but we can go with in a mindful way and be mindful of the fact that we're keeping this resource, we're valuing it. It's the most valuable resource on the planet. It really is. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask Damien and I about everything that we've been talking about? Because it's been fantastic. I'm really enjoying the comments that have come in, the questions that came in around bird baths, around wicking beds. I mean, so many of these things are those day-to-day ways that we can make a difference.
No, very, very good, Costa. Look, it's been fun. Costa, we sincerely appreciate you joining us on behalf of all of the Victorian Water Corporations, catchment management authorities, the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, everyone involved in water in Victoria. And again, just emphasising that theme, caring for water and country. Again, a shout out to traditional owners in Victoria. And it's just been great to have you on board, Costa. And I definitely can recommend, if people are looking for more tips and tricks around the garden, that you can learn so much if you go to YouTube and check out a heap of your videos. Go to iView, go check out, there's so many resources online, Dirt Girl World, and obviously, as you know, the person that looks a lot like Costa the Garden Gnome on Gardening Australia as well. And they're just such practical tips. And there's one I would do a shout out for, which was that one you produced, which was what you can do during lockdown for your garden. And it's, whilst lockdowns are easing now, and that's fantastic, there's so many great things in there about building up your soil. So thanks, Costa, for joining us to kick off National Water Week.
Look, Damien, these things, I love days, and there's more days than there are in the year. And whether it's National Bird Day, whether it's National Beach Day, there's whether it's Earth Hour, whether it's Water Night, all of these things, they are really just ways to bring things to our attention. And be it Bird Week this week, it's totally connected. I mean, the question around the bird bath is totally connected to everything you're talking about in Water Week, because our birds need water, and they're pollinators and they're predators which look after our landscapes. And if we want to bring them in, we need the water for them as well. If we've, due to agriculture and urbanization, encroached on their natural habitat, we have this wonderful opportunity to rebuild habitat. And our gardens in our preschools, our gardens in our schools, our gardens in our homes are this wonderful opportunity to build these connections, these integrated corridors of like hopscotch points that can move through our suburbs. And we can do that just with a bird bath, or just with a lizard lounge, or just with a hedge of mixed native plant species that flower at different times during the year to bring the pollinators. And the pollinators do their job, but then the insects are what are the food for the birds. And then the birds provide pollination and a whole host of other services for our landscapes, which are being run on water. And it's this water that we've all got this opportunity to celebrate this week in National Water Week. And through all of these different events, the bee and butterfly encounter and the other online events that are planned, and that you can see the program on the websites of your different water resources. Check out Colaban Water's website, check out the Facebook page, jump on Dirt Girl World, and find different activities this week, because We can't do it overnight. We can't do it just this week, but we can start to do little things that make a big difference. And I think, as Dirt Girl always says, little things do make a big difference. Because if we take the approach that, oh, what can I do? Then it's defeatist. Because what I can do is do something that connects to what you do, which then connects to what hundreds of other people can do. And we can rewild our suburbs. We can rewild our landscapes. We can connect the country, as you said, Damien, and understand the lifeblood of that country, which is the waterways. They're the arteries and the veins that run the real living fluid, the blood of the landscape. The water is the equivalent of our blood, and the arteries are our streets. They're our bushland networks. They're these corridors that our water authorities are part of this, but they're authorities because we grant authority as a community. And when we work together, then those passages, those networks that we can rebuild from something as simple as a small garden patch on the front of our nature strip that connects to our neighbours over the street, and then that goes into the local bushland, which is then connected to the local stream, which connects to the next stream, which runs upstream to the top of the ridge, and then that corridor goes over the ridge and down to the river, and then that river runs not only towards the ocean but back up another catchment. And when we start to appreciate that we can influence landscapes way beyond us by being a part of the chain and linking the chain, being the cog, then Water Week is our business. It is such a good thing. And, you know, I love the fact that your network, Damien, and your approach is inclusive at all levels. You're bringing the public and us individuals in, but you're throwing a big blanket over all of those organizations and saying, we're going to do this. We're going to do this better. We've got to get this education out there. We've got to get the information out there, and we've got to utilize and value our resources, our water resources, like nothing else. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that because I'm warming up. I'm getting.
No, well said, Costa. And again, thank you very much. And yeah, just a big plug for all those online resources. And as you say, everyone can play a role. So thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks to anyone that's joined us on the replay, because you're as valuable to everything as anyone that was here today. So please share this broadcast with anyone else you know.
Hey, Costa, Liv, come here.